My name is Heather Marshall, and I am presenting on my service learning project for nonprofit management in spring 2025. My host for the service learning project was the Willow Center for Grieving Children. The Willow Center for Grieving Children was founded in 1999 and is based in Lewiston, Idaho. This organization provides grief support in the form of peer support sessions, which are age-appropriate and led by volunteer facilitators who've been trained. While the Willow Center is based in Lewiston, there are participants from all around the surrounding area, including towns like Orofino, Pullman, and Colfax. If you're familiar with the Lewiston area, you know that means that participants are making a 2-hour round trip twice a week in order to utilize the Willow Center's services. In other words, there's a lot of unique value in the services that the Willow Center provides. Their mission is to provide peer support groups for children and teens grieving a death of someone close to them and extend supportive services, grief resources, and education to families, caregivers, and the community free of charge. They also have a slogan that they use often, "So no child grieves alone." I think that's a pretty powerful statement on its own, and it gives a little more depth to the mission statement. The Willow Center's services are based off of the practices of the Dougy Center, which is a world-renowned facility based in Portland, Oregon, and they're a leader in the area of childhood grief support. The need for peer support for kids who are experiencing grief is clear, and I've listed some reasons for the demand for this type of support. 1 in 13 children in the U.S. will experience the death of a parent or sibling by age 18. Childhood grief is associated with increased risks of mental health challenges, including depression, anxiety, and even suicidal ideation. And a parent or caregiver's death can have a significant impact on a child's relationships and academic success. Clearly, children who are grieving need a strong support network, and the Willow Center can help provide that in a comfortable setting where they are surrounded by peers who are in similar circumstances. The Willow Center is fairly small as far as nonprofits go. They only have 2 paid staff members, which includes an executive director and a program manager who also serves as camp director for their yearly summer camp. There are 11 board members on the board of directors. I was able to sit in on a board meeting, and I have to say their board was extremely efficient and the meeting was run incredibly well. That particular meeting was especially interesting because they were reviewing and approving the yearly budget, which had been put together by their finance committee and was being presented by the executive director. There was a lot of great discussion during the meeting, and I was really impressed by the board's comfort in questioning things and having kind of an intense conversation and finally finding consensus and voting to approve the budget, and it was all done in the time that was allotted for it in the agenda. I've observed other board meetings for different organizations, and this was one of the best run meetings I've ever seen. There are a multitude of volunteers. 3 of them are program directors, but there are also 23 support group facilitators. And there are other volunteers that are mostly community members or people who have a connection to the Willow Center who serve as volunteers at events when extra help is needed. I initially chose the Willow Center for my service learning project because I have a friend who is currently serving on their board of directors. She had had a community engagement idea that was pretty exciting and she'd wanted to pursue it, but since the board and the staff are already pretty loaded with other duties, there hadn't really been time to explore the idea further or come up with a cohesive plan for it. It was definitely still in the idea stage. So I met with the executive director and the program manager, and they were so excited to have someone follow up with this particular community engagement idea. Plus, they were very clear that any other help I could give would be really welcome. It took a couple of weeks to sort of distill the idea into something with form and function. The idea had been given the tentative title of a fireside chat, and it was essentially a short presentation to a community business about the Willow Center, where it would be a small group format in an informal setting with some snacks and refreshments. The intent of the presentation is to share what the Willow Center does and who it serves and why it's important, along with how the business being presented to can help. Working on the presentation was a slow process, and to be honest, I probably didn't ask for enough guidance at first. I found myself having a hard time envisioning what the presentation would look like, and as I was thinking of some businesses as examples of who we'd be presenting to, my biggest mental hurdle was, why would they want this presentation? What's in it for them? And I kind of got stuck on this question. But about that same time, we as a class were going through the chapter on fund development and grant writing. And in the book, there's a list of reasons why donors choose to give. And the top two reasons were the right person asks at the right time, and the other one was people have a sincere desire to help other people. That was a great reminder that good business leaders are already looking for ways to help their community. So getting out there and inviting them is really the first and most important step. While I was working on the fireside chat idea, there were some other opportunities to serve the Willow Center. I participated in a family dinner night where participants and their families came to a catered dinner, and the staff had provided lots of games and activities. And the dinner ends with a slideshow that has pictures of all the participants' loved ones who've passed on. It was really impactful, and it was honestly really cool to see these families enjoying themselves and watching them see their loved ones on the big screen. There was a lot of emotion, and I felt really privileged to have been able to be a part of it. I'm also going to be helping out with the gathering under the willow tree, which is happening this Thursday, May 8th. As I mentioned before, I also attended a couple of meetings. The first one was a subcommittee of the board, and it was called the Fund Development Committee. It was a very small meeting. There were some members that were out of town, but I got to see their process for introducing ideas for fundraisers and working through all of the logistics and planning that's required for events and campaigns. The other meeting that I was able to attend was the board meeting that I mentioned previously, which went really well. Having these interactions and observing how the Willow Tree's staff and board worked with each other was a great experience. So back to the fireside chat presentation idea. As I mentioned, I had a slow start, just simply because I don't think there'd been a lot of conversations about the presentation that were helpful as far as knowing exactly what the Willow Center wanted. So I met with a board member who initially pitched the idea, and we had a great conversation. She had this vision that helped pull all of our thoughts together, and what I ended up with is a cohesive outline and agenda for the fireside chat. We also changed the name from fireside chat to Helping the Willow Tree Bloom. The outline and the agenda provide a basis and instructions for the presentation, and they lay a good foundation for the executive director to build on. The agenda was created with the objective of keeping the presentation short enough to be doable by businesses either during their lunch hour or after work, but it also had the prompts we wanted in there so we could have a really good in-depth conversation. And that helps to make connections and build a relationship that we can keep growing in the future. The conversational prompt for the business participants is that they are asked, have you ever experienced the loss of someone close to you? How did you process that grief? And what was it about that process that you think was the most helpful? Have you ever known anyone who has used the Willow Center's services before? And what was your impression? Just getting that conversation going and making a connection through shared experiences. It's valuable, and it's a personal way to get people to understand how much these services are needed. And it's memorable to the attendees. They'll think about it later, and that keeps the Willow Center on their mind. What did I learn from this experience? Well, first, something that was really cool that as my service learning project progressed, everything I was doing seemed to correspond with the lessons we were learning in the book. The list of why donors give during the period where I was questioning the motivation for people to want to attend the presentation, the chapter on boards during the same week that I attended the board meeting, and also having just gone through the chapter on budgeting and finance, and the learning on marketing and communications at the same point when I attended the Fund Development Committee, and we talked about how to get the word out about fundraising and campaigns. It all seemed to line up really well, and that gave me a more informed perspective. As far as the project outcome goes, I learned that it's easy to get excited about a project, but that the real work can only start to happen when there's a good understanding of what's needed, what's wanted, and what are some parameters for the work that the project needs to cover. We figured it out in the end, but I wish that I would have dug in a little bit deeper on that side of things earlier on in the project. I also had some delays in my project due to some personal things that came up, and I was reminded that it's okay to be honest about what you're able to accomplish. The Willow Center has an amazing program, and they do an incredible amount of work with their limited staff. Providing the peer group services and putting together their summer camp and having their events, along with all the other things that come with simply running a business, can seem really overwhelming, but I think they're doing a good job. My recommendations for them are really based around what I observed to be their biggest strengths and their hardest challenges. My first recommendation is based on what I observed as far as their marketing and public presence. When you look at other organizations in town that serve kids, such as the Boys and Girls Club, there's a lot of exposure for that type of organization because they have a public sports program throughout the year and summer camps and things that are open to the public where you can see the service happening. The Willow Center is different because it's a very specialized type of program that has to do with the serious subject, childhood grief, and it's not a comfortable topic for most people. And added to that is the very real element of privacy. So there's no publishing of pictures of the kids in the program or at camp. They're very careful to protect that privacy. Because those things can limit exposure to the public, the marketing piece can be a big challenge. I think that adding in more casual and frequent social media posts on an array of media platforms that are focused not only on services that they offer, but also on their events, their volunteering opportunities, and even broader posts that include more general information about childhood grief would be really helpful for the Willow Center. In addition, I think there's some untapped opportunities for the staff to make in-person contact with businesses and other individuals by having a presence at other nonprofit and community events. The hope with the service learning project I did is that it can be used to build new relationships and strengthen existing relationships. And my other recommendation is that the Willow Center continues to foster the great relationships between the board, the volunteers, and the staff, because it really is one of their biggest strengths. I can't overstate how well these groups work together, and I think some of that is due to the smaller size of the Willow Center. Everyone has kind of an all-hands-on-deck outlook, kind of out of necessity, but it's also driven by the passion that all of these people have for helping kids who are grieving. Like most nonprofits, the goal is growth and all of the good things that come along with that. In the Willow Center's case, that includes a dedicated facility for their program and more program opportunities and being able to send more kids to summer camp, things like that. But with growth, other changes will happen. And my hope is that they can continue to foster those incredible internal relationships while they grow. So I would just encourage them to keep up that high level of support and recognition that they currently have for board members and volunteers. Overall, this was a great experience, and I would like to say thank you to the Willow Center's staff, Nicole and Sarah, for the opportunity to serve their organization, and thank you also for their patience with me as we worked through the project. I've included the web address for the Willow Center at the bottom of the slide, and you should definitely visit their site to find out more about their organization. Michelle Garrison, who was the board member at the Willow Center, I would just like to say thank you to her for her input on the project. And of course, Jenny Scott, our professor, thank you to you for your guidance on both the project and with the class material, which I found extremely useful and even enjoyable. So thank you for watching this presentation, and best of luck to all my classmates.